Welcome back, everybody. So, big questions. What jobs are disappearing and what will be the jobs of the future? Well, that question is perhaps no more important than now in this COVID-19 pandemic because unbelievably, 1 in 10 Canadians is currently out of work. And a lot of people also may be precariously employed, wondering what does the future hold in terms of employment. So, we're going to call on a futurist to help us determine exactly what is in store. So please welcome to the show, Nikolas Badminton, all the way from Vancouver. Welcome, Nicholas.
It's great to be here.
So, Nicholas, a new report by the Brookfield Institute at Ryerson University says that one-third of Canadian workers are currently in occupations with a high probability of change. So let's break down what some of the jobs are that are really at risk of disappearing.
Yeah, so it's any job that's kind of algorithmic, very simple, step by step. You can complete the task relatively easily, and it can be replaced with automated processes. So anyone from like fast food servers to truck drivers through to taxi drivers, retail assistants, even like back office administrators. So it's these people that are still skilled, but their work is fairly simple. And what we'll see in the next 5 to 10 years is we'll see technologies come in, even robotics come in, and automated vehicles and the such like, to really come and sort of disrupt that space. And the people that were working in those fields are going to have to sort of level up and go into more like wisdom-based skills, as I call them.
Interesting. Okay, so not every industry has been affected the same way during this pandemic, and some industries are not necessarily even bouncing back exactly the same way. But you've got about 4 million Canadians right now who are unemployed. And so when
Yeah.
you talk about what areas of employment they should be looking at, what would you suggest?
Yeah, so there are going to be some areas that really do boom out the back of this pandemic. So mental and physical wellness is going to be something that's going to be a big focus for all of us and our families and in the community as well. Urban and workplace design, working out how to make this new sort of rhythm of work in the office and at home work better. Data scientists, I've worked in data for over 25 years, and we're going to have people working out what that means and putting a human slant on the findings we have. Entrepreneurship, more people are going to start their own businesses, lots of creative services, in social media, producing video content, sort of disrupting everything from like television to online content. And I think that these are areas that are going to be booming in the next sort of 3 years, really. And it's interesting to see that there's a creative human element to everything that's coming out of the back of this.
Well, we're glad to hear that. um, Listen, we know that technology is changing the face of jobs, but also this pandemic has changed that as well, as Mel has mentioned. So what jobs do you see becoming in demand, like let's say 5 to 10 years from now?
Right. So this is where we start to speculate on what the future could be. I think we're going to see a lot of artificial intelligence coming into systems. They're going to have to be trained. We might even need to have artificial intelligence psychologists going forward. And that's a really interesting idea. As they learn like humans, we're going to have to counsel them like humans. I think nurse technicians, highly skilled nurses and people in the medical profession, that's going to be booming as well. I think that education is going to be disrupted. Micro school teachers, I think a huge trend that we should look out for. I think that there's going to be ghost kitchens, virtual restaurants, pumping out different kinds of foods, but in one big sort of factory space. And I actually do think that families, as they come online and they start to have more voices out there producing videos, vlogging, whatever, I think that there's going to be creative directors that help them with their journey and people to help them tell their story as well.
So fascinating. So let's talk about like the skills that we should be developing. If someone's worried about this future labor market, what are the skills that they should be working on to be more employable in the future?
We have to come back to recognize who we are. We're humans, and human-centered design has been going around in the business community for a long time. But now we have to really double down into what it means to be human, what it means to interact with each other, how to build systems, how to build workplaces and services and products that really matter to who we are. And then off the back of that, I think community building is going to become incredibly important. At this time where we've been locked down, we've been staying in our own cities, we have to really connect in new ways. There's language skills as well. By 2030, China and India are going to be the world's two biggest economic powers, and then the US in third position. So really learning Mandarin, learning Hindi, being able to do business with people in those countries is going to be something that's going to be a boon for many people in the Canadian economy.
So we've seen many businesses hit hard by this pandemic, and many are really doing a great job of pivoting those businesses. So what business models are shifting the most and how?
I think the first that we've seen is retail. I mean, our economies are almost measured at how well retail is doing. And very quickly, we saw companies switching to curbside pickup. E-commerce has just exploded at this time. Just this year alone, 1.7 trillion minutes have been spent on mobile just in the last few months. So people are going online. They're going to select the products they want. People are just going to stores now in a safe way, wearing masks and whatever, but they're going to buy. So retail is going to change somewhat, but these retail locations are going to become more creative. They're going to be, curated in a way that's a lot more built to specific customers that are coming through the door.
Oof. Okay. So let's talk about, you mentioned offices there, which is interesting because StatsCan is saying up to 40% of Canadians are currently working from home, which is a massive number. And a lot of places saying, I don't know if we're ever going to have our employees back in an office. So will offices exist in the near future?
Absolutely, they will. Once we've passed this pandemic, we've got fairly short memories. We like to be with people. We like to work with people. A lot of people have found that they can be quite productive working at home. So things are actually going to change. So in 2020, technologies like Zoom and whatever have come to the fore, but there's fatigue with that. What we'll find is we'll probably have a 3-2 rhythm. So 3 days in the office, 2 days at home, 3 days to be collaborative, come together, really build a culture and build innovation, and 2 days at home to be hugely productive. And I think that that's going to be a mantra going forward. And those flexible office workspaces are going to be more exciting and more interesting than the cubicles and the desks that we see today. And that's something that I'm really excited about. There's going to be a new efficiency. People are going to be measured on what they produce, not the hours they do or the hours they spend in the office. And I think it's about time that we disrupted this idea that the 9 to 5, 5 days a week is a norm that needs to be defended. I think that we need to break it, and I think that we need to broaden our horizons to new ways of working.
Just lastly, how about the future of education? Like, do you see it being a largely virtual space going forward?
Well, I really hope not. It's really difficult to maintain that, and children need to be with other children. It's really important to have that stimulus. It's really important to have good curriculum, and it's really important to support that. But education as a whole needs to be disruptive. We don't teach our children exactly what they need once they get out into the real world. We teach them basic skills, but it's time for a revolution. As I said earlier, micro schools is something that's going to change the dynamics of a hybrid between homeschooling and public schooling as well. We're going to have smaller groups of kids, and teachers are going to go private. That's going to be a boom economy as well. This hybrid schooling, where you might, again, very much like the 3-2 rhythm of the office and that hybridized environment, I think we're going to see potentially over the next 2 or 3 years, whilst we navigate our way out of this pandemic, we're going to see kids in school for 3 days and 2 days at home. And we're going to have to really work out what it means to teach children online. It doesn't just have to be streams of Zoom calls. It can be a little bit more creative. It can be redesigned as an education experience. I actually think that what's going to be coming is tech companies are now standing up. I mean, we're seeing companies worth $2 trillion, $1 trillion, hundreds of millions of dollars in the bank. You know what? They're starting their own education courses. We've seen companies like Google coming out with their own certificates. Kids won't have to go to college anymore. They'll just do a certificate. 6 months later, they'll have a job being able to work for Google or work using Google skills. And people like Dyson are even paying for 4-year engineering degrees for people so that they can come and work in their companies. I think that you're going to have children literally recruited out of school at the age of 15 to go and work for these companies. That's not a bad thing, but we've got to be a bit careful on creating balance in the world so that these companies don't have too much power and take over the entire system.
Wow.
Nik Badminton, so much food for thought. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure.
Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.